AM 790 Talk and Business presents The Coalition, a weekly 1-hour show that looks at all sides of local, regional, and national news, as well as current events. Join us now for The Coalition.
We are The Coalition, loud and proud, issues-driven, outrage porn-free, live Sunday morning, 10 a.m. on AM 790, your source for news, business, sports, and shortly, New York Yankees baseball. We can be found on the web at facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, coalitionradio.us, on the mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio. Editorial comments to the extreme here from my non-baseball sophisticated co-host here.
I'm just a Sox fan.
You're just a Rhode Island Red Sox fan.
Yeah, I don't know about the Rhode Island Red Sox.
Well, I'm not.
I like the Pawtucket Red Sox.
I'm thinking after this week, no one should be going out and buying their memorabilia anytime soon.
Or season tickets for that.
Or season tickets for that matter. Or be buying one of those boxes. Dave, another outstanding week here in the People's Republic of Rhode Island as we somehow continue our ever-ending spin into oblivion. The state's collapsing around us, and the two issues were pot and the Rhode Island Red Sox. So what more? What more can you say?
There was also that little nugget of news this week that our former speaker was, pled guilty to certain charges.
That's right.
Yeah. Things happened this week, actually. The ball was moving, the gears were grinding. So this brings up something that, people talk about reducing mandatory minimums. We had Bob Mann on a few weeks back talking about how we can reduce the prison population, mandatory minimums. Here's my deal. Mandatory minimums for elected and appointed officials that are convicted of felonious bribery and other such, tomfoolery.
So when you're saying, eliminate mandatory minimums, and he was talking about disenfranchised youth of, say, the South Side or West End or Providence or economically challenged, he might not have been speaking about at one point in time, at least on paper, if you consider his personal assets, which he obviously meant to include his campaign finance accounts, a multimillionaire. He's not part of it.
And just to show you how small potatoes our politicians actually think, I mean, he didn't get bribed for life-changing money here. It wasn't millions and millions of dollars. He didn't go in for wow, man, I'll be set for life if I can put this in the Caymans,
Yeah, well, I mean,
it was $50,000.
Now you got to say it right if you're from the northern Rhode Island. $52,000. Okay, I mean, it's funny because when you look at the Three Stooges from North Providence fame, when you look at Gordo here, when you look at the sum total of Rhode Island politicians, it's a pretty cheap investment, actually.
The ROI, we have an economic professional here with us. Maybe he could give us some numbers on the return on investment on buying politicians.
A few years back when, Jack McConnell was appointed to a federal judgeship, I called Jack Reed's office and asked for a price list. And what do you mean a price list? I said, well, I'm kind of a ham and egger. I can't afford the big money. I can't afford, say, a judgeship. How about a minor EPA position or a Commerce Department position? What's that, 10, 20 grand? I can borrow the money. So does that need to be checked? Is there a website I go to buy the job? They were offended.
It's like the old sign in the old time bars, right? $1, he just left. $2, haven't seen him this afternoon. $3, who?
No, I was in front of the Shark Bar last night. I was on Thayer Street. Went to a movie at the wonderful Avon Theater, and which is, by the way, a real gem if anyone hasn't been lately. If you want to get away from the multiplex, jungle, there is no better place to see a movie than the Avon. I never realized that Thayer Street was a walkway as opposed to a drive-through because there's essentially no parking left in Providence. I actually propped my state-of-the-art 2015 Ford Transit Connect on top of a small snow mountain.
That does not surprise me.
But I was across from the Shark Bar, so I stepped in and asked their neighbors about their newfound fame of their neighbor, and my understanding is actually that they're going to go at some level before a licensing board hearing. The same people that got bribed to give them, clearly under a little bit of pressure maybe to revoke that. And it was surprising how few people on the street knew what was going on. It was they're surrounded by it, they're immersed in it. There seems to be no recognition that it's anything other than business as usual.
Well, I think it's the old Rhode Island. What are you going to do?
Hey,
You know?
hey,
The overwhelming attitude of, it is what it is.
he got his. He's entitled. On a happier
But
front,
really, 3 years.
I know
3 years in a minimum security. I mean, I will say that those will probably be relationships that he forges in the next 3 years that will last him a lifetime.
Well, getting back to some of our more recent guests and the other issue on the hot stove of Rhode Island politics, what does the average kid get who gets busted for a low-level drug possession? What does the average kid get on if he's not politically connected and can't afford, Billy Murphy as his attorney? There's in the halls of justice is still clearly in the halls. The big winner of this week, which we openly talk about, I'm astonished by this. We openly discuss how Billy Murphy was the big winner because he got everybody else off, and he got Gordo to take the pipe. We talk about the events surrounding as our own demise as if we're handicapping an episode of The Sopranos.
Well, and I don't think this is the end of this. I don't think we've heard the end of this. I think that the tentacles of what happened here. I don't think Gordon Fox was the top of the pyramid.
I would have a year or two ago. I would have agreed, but here's the problem: Plunder Dome. What? Landfill? Huh? You get this collective from the from the law enforcement community once the initial, I guess, superstar arrest has been made. And what's astonishing to me more so is that most of these crimes that have been alleged and now copped to, whether it be anything from 38 Studios to the Plunder Dome to any one of the the daily rituals that we go through here in the state, one person is arrested in what is clearly a multi-party event. And while the political hack of the year gets done, the folks, the Solons of the East Side and the power players that pervade the People's Republic of Rhode Island seem to continually walk away scot-free. If someone is convicted of accepting bribes, then someone must have
offered a bribe.
Right. And as was brought up by someone who broadcasts down the hall, daily from 3 o'clock in the afternoon until 6, was there any discussion of RICO in this at all? No.
And if anybody knows Rico,
it's him. So no discussion of any other ties to any sort of organized crime element, not in the traditional mafia sense, but in forms of RICO. And we've got nothing else to show for this. And I don't think there will be anything else to show for this. I think Billy Murphy got him to cop to a low-level charge. The problem goes away. All the people that surround this individual in his day-to-day political life get to walk. Gina Raimondi gets to express disappointment. Disappointment? The office was for sale. She walked his district with him and worked actively to get him elected in an attempt, successful I might add, to get herself elected by playing power politics. All the people who were in the anybody but Buddy crowd. My
current mayor was wholeheartedly endorsed and had a fundraiser thrown for her.
We got to use
race for mayor.
We got to use the vernacular. She had a time, right? They had a time thrown by her. All right, and the whole anybody but Lorna Drain. Lorna Drain, where are you? You couldn't suppress your outrage. I mean, as if we knew who you were before, and we don't care who you are now. But you were clearly outraged by the antics of Buddy Cianci, as you called him. Yet, where is your disgust now? Progressive Democrats, where are you?
Just keep whittling away at our potential guest list. It's just, you're hacking names off left and right here.
That's I don't want that stooge in the video anytime soon. But, Lorna Drain, that whole crowd, Progressive Democrats, you supported Fox over Binder, a guy who clearly was in the game to provide an ethical alternative to a clearly corrupted speaker. And yet Progressive Democrats, in their willingness and their obsession with maintaining some type of relevancy as they saw it, bought the whole line.
That's the end of the story. That's what happened.
There you go. Our friend Jared Moffat was in the news this week with the introduction of heavily sponsored legislation legalizing cannabis. Our applause and our kudos out to Jared for what I think is one of the more professionally run campaigns for social change here in the state. The the outrage porn is all over the media. The kookier elements of those people probably looking to maintain their federal funding and their own relevancy are all over the place, just making up facts about marijuana. If the study doesn't exist, you just refer obliquely on some major media outlet about a study, and then you find out that later on that no such study even existed, but the host, who is probably brutally unprepared for the subject, is not willing to challenge you because it fits the editorial byline of whatever radio show or TV show that's going on, as he appeals to his own red meat crowd, his own constituency.
Drugs are bad, okay?
As a man once said, cocaine's a hell of a drug. But the bottom line is that we've got a chance, just like we had a chance and took advantage of, to reform marriage, just like we've done with a half a dozen other major issues, to address an issue that's costing this nation and this state untold millions of dollars, ruined lives, all because of some type of societal evaluation of the difference between alcohol and cannabis. And we've got a chance to do it right this time. There's a taxation element that's part of the program that will help this, twisted mess pay for itself, or as Tara Granham likes to put out, pot for potholes. I kind of agree with her. Dedicating the revenue stream to potholes is a delicious irony. But here's an attempt to engage in some legislation which can put away a problem, which can stop the judicial carnage that goes on, that clogs up our courts with meaningless arrests, that seeks to at least reverse one of the reasons why we have so much massive illegal immigration in this country, and at the same time provide a safe supply of a product that is already being used by a significant portion of the state. And I'd like to point out, as I've done on a couple of
what was the last survey I saw was like 13% of the state.
Right.
Well, admitted to using, people think that sometimes these surveys aren't as anonymous as they should be.
Right. So 13% admitted. It's probably 30 or 40%. And finally, and just as importantly, provide a safe product that will at least put some type of halt to the amount of people who are dying literally on our streets, whether it be from Woonsocket to Westerly, from synthetic marijuana.
Oh, and then there's the other economic impact of legalizing cannabis as well that I want to get into with our guest. We're coming up on the break, so do we want to give a little promo and get right into Scott afterwards?
Yeah, joining us right after this brief commercial break for Beacon Shipping, we'll be joining Scott Gibbs. Scott Gibbs is one of the preeminent, I'll call it, practical experts on economic development in the state, which means in this state he's actually engaged in successful economic development as opposed to talking about it, legislating it, or inflicting it upon people. So joining us right after the break will be Scott Gibbs, and we're going to get into some of what I call, we're going to dismiss some of the urban legends, the rhetoric, and the foolishness that often surrounds this type of conversation. So if you're listening to AM 790, The Coalition on Talk Radio, Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, www.coalitionradio.us. We'll be right back. Beacon Shipping and Logistics. Dave, have you shipped a car this week yet?
No, unless you count towing it.
They can't help you there. One of the things we're going to be focusing on today and in the future is what we consider a prime alternative for Rhode Island's economic development. And that is, as Dave and I discussed this week offline, making Rhode Island literally the warehouse of New England. And what better ties into that than Beacon Shipping and Logistics? If you own a car, if you would like to buy a car, whether it be on eBay or online, if you've got a family member remotely that needs a car, then
tune in every Tuesday.
Beacon Shipping and Logistics is your perfect alternative. They're locally based. They're based here in Warwick, Rhode Island, run by Rhode Islanders. They can literally give you the advantage of the Internet, sourcing and providing the most reasonably priced shipping alternatives here in America, yet at the same time giving you the support and the safety of a local vendor. And why do I mean that? We've talked about examples over the weeks. We've talked about folks, uncertain shippers showing up, cars being sidelined at, parking lots and malls across America because you assume one guy's going to bring it directly there. We talk about equipment that is just hopelessly out of date, unsafe, unregistered, uninsured, We talked about the insurance issues of you putting your vehicle in someone else's hands for a week, 2 weeks, or lately, as I heard from somebody, about 3 weeks, as it sat there in somewhere in the bowels of North Carolina. So it's you've got the perfect solution here, right here in Rhode Island. It's Beacon Shipping and Logistics.